Welcome to another episode of Ask Better Questions. In today's episode, we'll be discussing the second of my three main questions that I ask my clients daily. So those questions again, just briefly, what are you trying to achieve? The second one being, what is your current roadblock and where are you struggling? And the third one is, what assistance do you need? So today we'll be focusing on the second question, what is your current roadblock? The best way of delving into this is to discuss the most common project problems. So before we get into the episode, I'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsor, Color4 Solutions. As always, full disclosure, I am a director at Color4 Solutions and we are the people to speak to if you're looking for any independent advice on AI implementations or indeed automation. If you're in the market to automate or implement AI in any of your business processes, be sure to reach out. Links are in our description for today's podcast. So, what are the most common project management challenges? Well, there are 10 of them. So, setting clear goals and objectives, scope creep, budget restrictions, lack of communication, team conflict, so a lack of clear direction or a miscommunication that generally causes those things, mismatched team skills, absence of accountability, impractical deadlines, poor risk management, and finding effective project management software tools. So without further ado, let's get started. So setting clear goals and objectives. Getting clear on what you need to do is pretty critical for a successful project. Failure to set appropriate goals and objectives can lead to a whole host of issues, including poor resources and stakeholder management. Effectively, it will derail a project before it starts. I guess the first episode, so last week's episode on setting a project scope, is the best place to start in relation to setting clear goals and objectives. But additionally, you want to make sure that your goals and objectives for the project are in line with the rest of the organization, the business process, and everyone who's involved on the project. So further to that, popular approaches to goal setting, the SMART and clear goals, SMART, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound, and clear, which is collaborative, limited, emotional, appreciable, and refinable. Each of those methods or you can blend the two, can help project managers set goals to steer teams and individuals towards a project completion. So start by breaking the project down into simple tasks. Those tasks should then be assigned to the most appropriate people, and those people should have clear goals and objectives outlined within the project scope. So having the correct methodology to set these things up enables a project leader, to have the tools they need to build custom goal trackers and the like. There are templates you can get. There is software you can implement to do these sorts of things. So the second one being scope creep. So if we kick on to scope creep, it's a classic project management challenge that refers to how requirements for a project change from what was originally agreed at the project initiation. So it's a common problem that's cited by a lot of project professionals. Doesn't need to cause too many dramas as long as you manage it effectively. So I guess here's a practical example. So if you look at the construction industry, a client makes unauthorized changes to initial drawings of a building. Those changes have bearings on both the deliverables, the purpose of the project, and possibly even structural integrity, in addition to costs and resources, all those sorts of things. So managing those scope changes is possible within the project team if an increase in funds or project duration can be agreed. So it's not always about funds, sometimes it's about time, sometimes it's about resources. But generally speaking, any changes will have an additional cost. So the third one is budget restrictions and changes. So when you start to get scope creep while managing projects, so does the budget. So budget management can pose a big challenge for project managers. Your initial budget was set, possibly has contingencies in there, and those can disappear rather quickly if scope creep takes over. So if you're a project manager on, say, a marketing team, and you discovered that you need to promote a new product, you'll need to increase online advertising spend from what you initially planned because you've got more SKUs. the campaign is necessary, the manager may request more funds or stretch what you have and reduce costs in other areas, but it will impact the project and the deliverables across the project body. You've got to plan your budget accurately and ensure the project remains within budget, because failing that is a failed project. There aren't a lot of places that you can go over budget significantly and still deliver on time. Maybe inside of government. So how do you deal with that? When you have things that come up that will impact on your budget, being aware of those and being able to calculate exactly the impact that you anticipate in your project plan. And so your change of scope documentation will indicate that these are the additional resources and time that you would need to add to the project in order to account for the new complexity of the change. All right, so number 4 is a lack of communication. So communication is, I think, arguably, other than setting a goal and setting the scope correctly, communication is the most important function for project managers. Making sure everyone's on the same page, making sure everyone is informed and aware of what needs to happen on projects, and making sure everyone's informed as to where people are at in the project. This is arguably the key skill that you need to have as a project manager. Communication makes or breaks a project. Good communication means team members work well together, tasks are allocated efficiently and effectively, and stakeholders are kept in the loop about project processes. Pardon me. Bad communication, well, that means none of the above happens. So that's a problem. If you have, poor communication, you don't get allocated effectively, you don't have stakeholders kept in the loop, your team members don't work well together, and the project will quickly go off the rails. So how do you deal with communication issues? Well, a lot of it is how you set up the project in the first place. Having a good and experienced team that already have worked together, that is a great asset. But regardless of whether your team has worked together or not, if they're experienced in projects and they know their own role well, and they know what everyone else is doing, they know where they fit into the great scheme of things, then the project will probably succeed quite well. You need to set expectations for everyone. That is, who's responsible, those sorts of things, as well as what functions are going to be done by who and by when. Having an open project plan, be it a Gantt chart or something similar, to allow people to see where the project is going from and going to is key to keeping everyone on the same page. So having effective meetings, and I've written this here, is having effective meetings as required, not as scheduled. I've been in a lot of projects that have meetings when there are no developments. If you're having meetings that could have been an email, you're wasting time. And meetings, as described by one of my first bosses, are a practical alternative to work and achievement. So effectively, you want to have meetings when you need to have them, and you don't want to have meetings just because we have a Monday meeting. You can have those meetings as long as you're not wasting a great deal of time. There are agile groups that will meet religiously every morning and evening, and a lot of what happens in that meeting isn't necessarily about communication of what has happened or been achieved during the day, but more so what the plans are for the future and the like. So it can still be an effective meeting, but you don't want to have meetings just because you have a scheduled meeting. If there is nothing to discuss and no updates to give and no further plans that are new information for the people that are coming to this meeting, then it is a waste of time. So again, effective tools can help you drive those communication practices. Particularly people with experience, they will know what software to use, what tools to use, what methodologies to use, when to have those meetings and what needs to be covered therein. And bringing people together to thrash out particular problems or help create a project environment where constructive feedback is valued is probably the best tool for improvement. So moving on from communication issues, when you have poor communication, you get step 5. Item 5 is team conflict. When asked about project management challenges, a lack of strategic direction and leadership was another biggie. But the problem that project managers face, well, at least one of the top problems, 14% of project managers reported that a lack of direction was a cause of conflict in their project. Again, a lack of direction can be a poor scope, or it can be poor leadership in terms of your project champion is not invested in the project, has changed their mind and doesn't really want the project to go ahead. I have been in those projects and they are very painful to achieve. Additionally, 12% of project managers reported miscommunication and misunderstandings within the team as a major hurdle. So not having team members that are aware of what other people are doing or what's involved in what it is that they're doing, or any delays that are coming, those sorts of things that then impact on their deliverable and pushing things onto other teams, blame game, that sort of thing. Whenever anything's off the rails, everyone wants to blame everyone else. However, putting it on the table and saying, all right, done messed up, we got to move together as a team, that's the only way that you're going to get forward without having these huge conflicts. Now, we're not saying that the conflicts won't happen, but being able to manage those is the job of a good project manager. So ignoring team conflict just isn't an option. You need to figure out the root cause, take a deep breath, and get it all sorted. So probably the best way of dealing with team conflict I've found is bringing people back to the shared vision of the project. So that generally removes miscommunication. If we all have the shared vision, this is what we're trying to achieve, we're all pulling in the same direction to achieve something, you can bring clarity and cohesion to a team quite quickly. All right, so number 6, mismatched team skills. As a project manager, you want to create the best work environment for your team. So a productive work environment comes from matching tasks to team members with the right skill set to deliver those. If there's a mismatch between requirements and skill level, the project's bound to suffer inefficiencies and potential failure. So appropriately matching skills to project tasks requires the experience to know what the skills are required for any task, and also project managers need to get to know their team well so that they can understand their skills and motivations. Some of it will fall on the hiring managers, some of it will fall on the people that originally planned and staffed the project. Some of it will fall on project managers who will need to figure out on the fly not only who can get something done, but if the skills do not exist in the current team, what is the best way forward? Is somebody in the team able to pick up those skills and develop them in time to deliver the project? Or is it best to hire externally on a contract basis, or even within the organization itself, to get somebody on board with the appropriate skills that need to be had within the team? So again, a lot of these things can be sorted out at the scoping stage when you're putting your initial team together. So a good project manager would constantly be assessing their workforce to establish whether every member of the team is utilized effectively based on the skills and workload. Don't bring on people too early when there isn't the work for them. Don't bring them on too late when there isn't the time to get the work done. And you want to utilize people as effectively as possible. So again, proper planning, proper team skills, and proper cohesion within the team will assist, but it comes down to getting the right people at the right times in the right roles. All right, so the 7th part of this is absence of accountability. This is a huge killer for projects. So accountability means every member of your team is responsible for their decisions and actions. Now, that isn't saying that if a project fails, it's all on the project manager. It's saying that many times people within the project go, well, I've done my bit and it doesn't matter anymore. Meaning I'm not fixing it, I'm not changing it because I've delivered what I have to deliver. And again, when you have scope creep, sometimes the deliverables change and people resist the fact that they have to redo work that's already been done. It's not about handing out blame in terms of accountability. It's empowering the team to get things done the way they want to without micromanaging every move, but still having the deliverable be accounted for by the person delivering. So, accountability in the workplace is associated with increase in work commitment and higher performance. I haven't yet met, well, actually, no, I probably have met a few project individuals who do not like accountability, but I've met many, many more who thrive in project environments because you're accountable, you deliver, and you move on. The projects teams I've struck have really enjoyed being accountable as opposed to, well, I'm here every day, every week, and I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life, so it doesn't really matter if I get it right this time. Project teams are high pressure and high performance. So, at least the project teams I've been involved in. When you find that you are striking absence of accountability in your project, most project teams actually strike this problem, a lack of accountability. Team members aren't accountable, commitments to project goals and the likelihood of project success, they all vanish, they all disappear. Effective project management enables accountability clearly from the start. So setting up goals and objectives to help build accountability as everyone is clear on responsibilities, it's part of the original scope. It's probably more than the original scope document, but it is something that you would do very early on in the project as breaking down what tasks need to be done and then assigning those tasks to people so that they can be done inside timeframes that are agreed. Those sorts of things and putting people's name to a task and putting it to a team and to an individual to make sure that that particular task gets done and putting that in the open, available to everyone Gantt chart makes it very clear as to these people are accountable for making sure these things work within these timeframes for the project to move forward. All right, so impractical deadlines. Here we go. This is one that you do strike more rarely than I think a lot of people would think, but I guess it goes to show that everyone wants to under-promise and over-deliver. However, that isn't always the possibility. A lot of people that are in sales teams will over-promise and under-deliver. So we've all sat on the sidelines and watched project management or project managers who haven't heeded these pearls of wisdom and have over-promised and under-delivered. For some people, it's very close to home. So ignoring this advice means deadlines are missed, quality is reduced, team members are stressed, and stakeholders are disappointed. So unrealistic deadlines are a classic way to overpromise. If you believe that something can be done, it's always, within a certain time frame, it is always best to check with those people who are responsible for delivering it. Confirm that more than 3 times, and then add 10% as a minimum. Generally 15 to 30% extra time to allow for any stoppages, roadblocks, etc. So an effective project manager knows the team's strengths, weaknesses, along with what the team can deliver within a specific duration. You can negotiate for achievable deadlines without rushing the work. This is something that needs to be done at the start of the project, but frequently it's done during the project. That's not always a tragedy, but many times that's when you find that projects go over in terms of delivering, like timeframes. But giving impractical deadlines might win you the project, but it will frustrate you, your team, your clients, severely affect your work outcomes, and ultimately taint reputations. So, the best way of handling it, be realistic. Check, double check, triple check. Find people that are experienced and know what they can deliver in a certain amount of time and believe them. Because more often than not, those are the people that will be responsible and again, accountable, going back to our previous point, for delivering those things in those timeframes. So number 9, we're almost done. We've only got 10. So number 9, risk management. Project managers have to evaluate and manage risks through the life cycle of projects. That's fairly straightforward. project managers aren't psychic, and no matter how much you plan, some risks are going to occur. So experienced project managers know how to mitigate the impact of these risks more often than not. Unless they are major things like COVID, more often than not, these things can be managed within the existing scope. However, mitigating these things can probably best be managed by going what-if scenarios and devising contingency plans within the planning stage. So if you go, what if it takes longer? What if somebody's sick? What if our budget blows out? What do we do in these instances? And having contingency plans and being fastidious with your budget allows you more latitude when it comes to contingencies. So as a project manager, you need to make sure that your team can adapt if things get out of control. A project management platform that helps you identify, manage, and mitigate risks can help. Again, making sure you have the right tools for your job. There are many different project management softwares out there, some more useful than others. Some have features that allow you to share quite openly and share selectively with stakeholders, project team members, and management. So finding the right tools is what number 10 is. Finding effective project management software and tools. So many project managers rely on your project management software. This is not a earth-shattering thing to say, but that said, many don't utilize their software as well as they could. So a lot of them will formulate their Gantt chart and then never touch it, even though the projects never get delivered the way that Gantt chart looked when it was first devised. Oftentimes, any changes in that are done on the fly. Communication is done through a hodgepodge of different systems as opposed to in a single repository. The best advantage you can have is having a sole repository of all knowledge and wisdom for the project. This is what we're doing. Everyone has access to it. Everyone can see where the project's at, where it's supposed to be at, what stages we're at, what stages we're working on currently, what's coming down the pipe, where resources are allocated, those sorts of things, so that everyone is on board with where the project is currently and where it's headed. Unforeseen issues cost you wasted budget, frustrated top performers, awkward conversations with senior management, when you don't deliver on time. The biggest advantage of these platforms is that they can be accessed remotely in a lot of instances, and project managers can track projects in real time. They can also centralize data and enable access by all stakeholders via multiple devices and methods. So those are the top 10 issues that I've found with projects. I found most of these have occurred in several of the projects I've been involved in. On every single project I've been involved in, there have always been these challenges in some way, shape, or form. But that about wraps it up for today's podcast. If you have questions or comments, please reach out in the links in the description. If you like the podcast, leave a rating and review, and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. So I'm Peter Adams, and I'll be here next week to ask better questions.